Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My mother and I have always had a pretty good relationship. She's been through a lot. Raising 3 kids as a single mom after my dad passed away wasn't easy, and I always admired her strength. That's why, when she called me one evening and told me she'd met someone, I was genuinely happy for her. She sounded so excited, like a teenager with a crush, and I hadn't heard her like that in years. His name was Greg, she told me, and they'd met at a charity gala. He was charming, successful, and made her laugh. She told me he had a daughter, Megan, who was in her 30s and very close to him. I thought it was great that she'd found someone who seemed like a good match for her, someone who could finally make her happy after so many years on her own. The first time I met Greg, he seemed nice enough. He was polite, asked about my job, and mentioned how much he cared for my mom. I didn't have any reason to dislike him. A few weeks later, my mom invited me, my husband, and my brothers to a family dinner at her house. Greg and Megan would be there, along with some extended family. It seemed like the perfect opportunity for everyone to get to know each other better. I figured it would just be a normal dinner, awkward small talk, maybe a few funny stories, but nothing out of the ordinary. That's not how it went. We all sat down around the dining table, passing around bowls of salad and platters of chicken, when Megan walked in. My husband's face went pale. Megan froze in the doorway, her smile dropping as soon as she saw him. Nobody else seemed to notice at first, but I did. There was something between them, some kind of unspoken tension. I leaned over to my husband and whispered, "Do you know her?" He nodded but didn't say anything. After a few minutes, I excused myself and pulled him aside. "Who is she?" I asked. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "That's Megan, my ex." I couldn't believe it. Of all the people in the world, my mom's new fiancé's daughter was his ex? What were the chances? "What happened?" I asked. "Why does it seem so weird?" That's when he explained. Years ago, when they were dating, she had cheated on him with someone from her workplace. He found out through mutual friends and confronted her. She denied it at first, but more people confirmed what happened. So he broke things off. He moved on, met me, and hadn't seen or heard from her since. When we went back to the dinner table, I was on edge. Megan avoided looking at my husband entirely. She barely spoke and left as soon as dinner was over. The rest of the family was oblivious, happily chatting and laughing, but I knew something wasn't right. After everyone had left, my mom pulled me aside. She looked concerned, almost upset. "Why didn't you tell me your husband is Megan's ex?" she asked. I was taken aback. I didn't even know until that night. She then said, "Megan told Greg that he cheated on her, that he broke her heart and left her devastated. I can't believe you married someone who would do that." I tried to explain. I told her what my husband had said, how Megan had been the one to cheat, and how his friends had confirmed it. I told her he ended it because he couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies. My mom just shook her head. "Of course he'd say that," she said. "All men say that. They always blame everything on the woman." I was shocked. My mom was choosing to believe Megan's side of the story without even giving my husband a chance. It didn't matter how many people confirmed the truth. In her eyes, Megan was the victim, and my husband was the villain. From that day on, Megan refused to be in the same room as me or my husband. She wouldn't attend family gatherings if we were there, and if my mom hosted something, Megan's absence was always followed by a comment like, "Well, you know why she can't be here." I accepted it. If she didn't want to see us, fine. I wasn't going to force anyone to be around us. As long as my mom still had us over and things were normal between us, I could deal with Megan's absence. Then Greg proposed to my mother, and they started planning her wedding. At first, it was exciting. We talked about venues, flowers, and dresses. I offered to help wherever I could, looking at decorations, picking out invitations, even helping her choose a dress. We had a great time together, and I thought everything was fine. But then one day, when I suggested we look at dresses for me to wear as her daughter, she hesitated. She wouldn't meet my eyes, and I could tell something was wrong. "What is it?" I asked. She took a deep breath and said, "I think it's better if you and your husband don't come to the wedding." I was stunned. "Why?" I asked. She explained that Megan had told Greg she couldn't stand the thought of being in the same room as my husband and me. It was too painful for her, she said. My mom added, "You know how much Megan means to Greg and how close they are after he lost his wife. He wants her to be comfortable, and she won't come if you're there." I reminded her that Megan was the one who cheated, not my husband. I told her again what had happened, how my husband was innocent in all of this. But she just shook her head. "He's a man," she said. "All men blame everything on the woman." I couldn't believe it. She was siding with Greg's daughter over her own daughter. After everything we'd been through, after all the years I'd stood by her, she was throwing me under the bus because of Megan's lies. I left that conversation in tears. When I told my brothers what happened, they were furious. They told my mom that if I and my husband weren't invited, they wouldn't go either. They said it wasn't fair and that she was letting Greg and Megan dictate the guest list at the expense of her own family. My mom called me, crying, begging me to convince my brothers to come, saying that she needed them there to walk her down the aisle. But I didn't ask my brothers to boycott the wedding. They made that choice on their own, and I wasn't going to back down. I told her I wouldn't try to change their minds. She started sobbing, saying I was destroying her big day. But how could she expect me to fight for her when she wouldn't even fight for me? So here I am. My brothers refuse to go. My mom is begging me to fix it, and I'm still not invited. Am I the a-hole for refusing to convince my brothers to attend? OP is definitely not the a-hole here. OP's mom disinvited OP, her own daughter, from her wedding because her new fiancé's daughter decided to stir up some old drama and lie about OP's husband. Instead of supporting OP, or at least hearing OP out, she took Megan's side without question. That's not just hurtful, it's a betrayal. Now that OP's brothers are taking a stand for OP, she's calling OP to clean up the mess she made. But OP is not the one who created this situation. She's the one who chose to prioritize her fiancé's daughter's comfort over her own family. If she wants everyone to be there, she needs to make it right by acknowledging the truth and treating OP with the respect she deserves. OP is not responsible for fixing this. Also, it's interesting how Megan feels uncomfortable with OP as well. Why she demands both OP and her husband uninvited, not only OP's husband. That's pure jealousy in my opinion. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. It's unbelievable that your mom would believe her fiancé's daughter over her own child, especially when your husband has plenty of evidence and witnesses to back up his side of the story. Instead of doing the reasonable thing, talking to you, considering the possibility that Megan might be lying, she disinvited you from a family event. And now that her sons are standing in solidarity with you, she's demanding you convince them to go? That's just plain unfair. You've already been wronged. You didn't owe her any favors. This whole situation is the result of her own decisions, and if she's unhappy with the outcome, it's up to her to fix it. Not the a-hole. Your mom created this entire situation by taking sides without even listening to the full story. It's incredibly disappointing that she wouldn't trust you, especially after you provided the facts and told her what actually happened. But instead of believing her daughter, she decided to cater to Megan's feelings and cut you out. Now she's upset that your brothers won't attend her wedding, and somehow that's your fault? No way. You didn't ask them to boycott the wedding. They made their own decision. Your mom needs to take responsibility for the consequences of her actions. She made her choice, and now she's dealing with the fallout. That's not on you. Not the a-hole. The fact that your mom would rather believe Megan's lies over her own daughter's truth is absolutely mind-boggling. She's let her new relationship cloud her judgment to the point where she's willing to exclude you from one of the biggest events of her life. And now that your brothers have decided they won't attend, she expects you to fix things? That's incredibly unfair. You've been disinvited. Why should you lift a finger to help her out? You're not ruining her wedding. She made that decision herself when she chose to side with her fiancé's daughter and ignore your side of the story. If she wants to repair this, she needs to start by apologizing and welcoming you back into the fold. Otherwise, this is a mess of her own making. I'd like to start this off by saying my wife, 23 female, and I, 23 male, have always been the black sheeps of our families, and are definitely not the favorite children on either side. My wife and I met in 7th grade, and we have now been married for 3 years, meaning we got married at 19, which my mother, 55 female, had a complete exponential breakdown over, but that's not super important. Recently, my wife has voiced her desire to go to Miami this summer to see her sister and brother-in-law, as well as their new baby. I was all for the idea. My wife and her sis have had some issues in the past, and I was super excited that she was the one wanting to see her, and it wasn't me forcing her to visit, like I usually end up doing. We had the conversation and phone call about the logistics and whatnot, and the travel plans as well as where we'll be staying is all done. I mentioned this in passing to my twin brother, who was actually the favorite child, and evidently, he passed this forward to my mom and pops, who we were planning to tell right before we left so that we could avoid a huge conflict over it. Yesterday morning, my mom called me crying on the phone, saying that I have betrayed her once again, and how she couldn't believe I could do this to her. I asked her what she could possibly be talking about, and she revealed to me that my sisters, she's the eldest child, and is probably even with my brother for favorite, baby showers on the first full day that we'd be in Miami after travel day 1 was over. Before my wife and I started booking things, we made sure that our trip wouldn't interfere with any of our siblings, and we were completely free to be gone from the 2nd through the 8th. I called my sis to see why she rescheduled, and she told me that Mom said she felt like having a shower in May was a bad idea, which makes absolutely no sense, but I don't even want to get into that. We talked, and I told her that I would stay back and come to her baby shower, but I knew my wife wouldn't, and that nobody was going to change my mind or her mind on that decision. My wife is still going to Miami, and I'm over the top excited for her. But my mother has been calling us non-stop, saying how rude it was that she'd choose her sister over mine, when we're now a joint family. My mother hasn't met 2 out of 5 of my wife's siblings, simply because she doesn't care to. She called super late last night, going on another one of her tangents about disrespect, and I finally told her that she has no say in how my wife lives her life, and she should be thankful I'm even going to the baby shower. Apparently, this really made her sad, because my father called earlier this morning saying how out of line I was, but I truly don't think what I did was too bad. Am I the jerk here? Update. I'm going to address the top comments, questions below in different paragraphs. Why do I force my wife to see her family? This was really bad wording on my part. My wife is one of 7 children and only has one elder sibling that moved out when my wife was still pretty young. Due to the fact that my wife's parents were so young, along with them having so many kids, a lot of the childcare fell upon my wife. The kids, my wife and her siblings, don't talk to their parents anymore, but they do talk to their extended family. The entirety of the family lives in Poland. My wife and her siblings are the only ones who live in the States, and they pretty much stick out like sore thumbs because of it. I've known her family since I was 12, and they've become as much my family as they are hers. I'd also like to add that my wife and I raised the youngest 3, and they used to live with us, but decided to go back and live with their parents when Ava and I moved to the city from the suburbs. In my opinion, my wife should try to see her family when they come, especially because they've traveled so far, at least once. If she decides she doesn't want to see them, I usually recommend a few accommodations I could make, and if she still decides she doesn't want to see them, I leave it there, and I see them alone. Finally, the reason my wife doesn't like to see them is because she has been making excuses since we graduated as to why we can't move to Poland, and she doesn't want them trying to talk her into moving. I am going to Miami with my wife. I had a conversation with my wife at lunch, and we talked about me going low contact with the twin and no contact with my mom and pops. After hearing from everyone and reading on the Raised by a Narcissist thread, I feel like I just need to cut my parents off, and that's what I'll be doing. As for my brother, I just can't. I will be talking to him about my privacy and how I don't want him to be sharing my info as well as not sharing things that I know would be controversial. I know it seems stupid, but I just cannot cut my brother off. He's my twin and has been with me since quite literally the moment I was born. I talked to my sister earlier this evening, and we've decided that the 3 of us, my wife, myself, and her, will be going out to dinner next week, and that is when I will talk to her about my boundaries with Mom. I feel like it would be too much to do over the phone, and she's too sensitive when it comes to those things. In conclusion, I blocked my mom and pop's numbers. I'm going to be going to Miami with my wife. I'm not attending the baby shower, and I have boundaries set with my brother. Thank you to everyone who gave advice, even if it was harsh. Not the a-hole. Your mom is manipulative and deliberately changed the date of the shower so she could cry about it. Hey man, you gotta put boundaries up with your mom. She's narcissistic and clearly does not value your time, or your wife as a whole. Oh my God. You've been the black sheep and they treat you as such. Why bend backwards for them? Go to Miami, have fun. Baby showers are 1 in a million. It's their fault they moved the date and didn't communicate. The old duck around and find out, some might say. Choose your wife. She's your family, and she will never treat you the way they do. You're the a-hole for letting your mom manipulate you out of going on vacation with your wife. My ex-husband, 34 male, divorced and no contact since 2017, was forced to list me, 35 female, as a reference on an application to join a new police department as a significant relationship. We were together a total of 10 years, of which 5 were married. We had an amazing relationship until the last 6 months of our marriage. His behavior changed completely. One day he came home and said he didn't love me anymore and wanted a divorce. This came out of left field for me at the time. It shattered my world. We got through the divorce, and I picked up the pieces and put myself back together. Met an amazing man, 37 male, who is twice the man my ex-husband will ever be. A few weeks ago, I received a call from the police department my ex-husband has applied to, asking for a reference. I hesitated a bit and asked the woman on the other line if she was aware I was his ex-wife. She said yes, and that it would be beneficial for the department to get all sides, so I agreed. It was fairly standard questions for the most part. Then one caught me off guard. Would you trust him with your life? No. Hard no was my answer. She asked me to explain. I told her about a year after the divorce, I had lunch with a mutual friend of both my ex and I, who told me my ex-husband had been cheating on me the last 6 months of our marriage with his now girlfriend, who was also married when the affair started. This woman was not just a co-worker, but in fact one of his superior officers at the time. The interviewer then asked if I had confronted him about this. I said no, because I hadn't spoken to him since the day at court where everything was finalized. And as far as I knew, he didn't know I knew of the affair. She thanked me for the honesty, and we ended the call. A few days after, my ex-husband started messaging me via text and social media, have blocked on everything at this point, telling me I cost him the job, and I was a selfish bee for not just lying so he could get on at a better department. I never responded to him, so his girlfriend started doing the same, also blocked with no response. With this reaction from the both of them, am I the a-hole here? Obviously not the a-hole. The last thing we need is more untrustworthy cops. Not the a-hole, and very glad this dude didn't end up becoming a cop. Not necessarily because he was a cheater, but because of how he's treating you after not getting the job. Like, be real. He really had no other significant relationships in his life he could have listed as a reference, besides his ex-wife with who he is not even in contact with. Not the a-hole. If he didn't want someone telling them he cheated, he shouldn't have cheated. My now ex-wife pulled the same crap and told me to lie to others about our split, and I laughed in her face and told her I was going to tell others the truth about what happened and let them decide what to think. Should have been nicer, and I wouldn't have to tell others you were a jerk.